Hey, good morning. Woo! Are you guys ready? This is awesome. I cannot believe we're all here this morning on a Friday. Thank you for coming to AgileCamp 2015 Silicon Valley. I'm so glad you're able to make it. My name is Stacey Lui. I'm an Agile coach here in the Bay Area. I work with Bratton Company. It's my firm, and we're so delighted to help produce this event. This is our third one, believe it or not. Third one. The first two over at PayPal. Who was at the first two? All right, awesome. It was a lot of fun. Today is about high performance, and so we have some really great people that have helped us become high performing as a community. And first and foremost, I'd like to introduce them. They're our sponsors, because without our sponsors, we would not be here. We wouldn't have the facility, the food, all these things that they helped contribute. So with that, I just want to say thanks to our sponsors, and we're going to get right to that really quick. Version 1. Where's version 1? Cheers. Say something. Cheer for your team. And we've got, where's SIQ? Solutions IQ. There they are. Big dinosaur. And then we have Lean Combine University with Janice in the back. And Rally Software. Where's Rally? Woo! And then Digite. All right, Mahesh. And last week we have RJC Project Solutions. There you go. Thank you, Rob, for coming and for supporting us. Thank you all for coming and supporting us. Today is about you guys. A couple of things about AgileCamp that we'll get into in a little bit, but the key for us is how do we really become a high-performing organization? That's why maybe we became Agilists. But maybe it's something different. But think about high-performing organizations. It starts with people like you and me who go into these organizations with the thought of creating something new and different, which helps us work in a different way. So when we think about that, consider this. There are over 300 CSMs in the world today. 300,000 CSMs in the world today. Think about that. There's over 60,000 certified Scrum product owners in the world. 60,000. How many ACPs are out there? ACPs in the room? There's few of them. There you go. ACPs, lean or Kanban trained people. I know there's a few of them, for sure. So if you have a CSM, or you've got a certification, or you've got something to that degree, stand up if you've got a certification in Agile, in some capacity. That's awesome. Isn't that huge? Doesn't it feel good to be part of that crowd? But that's about you. What about the people that you're working with? What can you do to help them become better people, become better teams? So close your eyes. Close your eyes for just a second. And think about a team that you've worked on in the past. Think about a team that you've worked on in the past that was so awesome. It just blew your mind. It could be work, it could be sports, it could be a hobby. But think about it. How did it feel? How did it feel to be part of that killer team? Awesome, right? Yeah. Now, open your eyes. That awesomeness came from not just them, but from you. So you are in that position to create awesomeness for those teams that you're working with today. When you're going through the different workshops that we have and you're listening to the keynotes, my challenge to you would be, can you pick up one thing, two things, maybe three things, maybe 100 things that can cause someone to say, that thing that Alan's talking about kind of made sense. That one thing that Rob talked about just clicked. Eva said something that really just hit me and changed the way I thought. Can you be that person? Can you take this in and reflect it out and become that multiplier for your Agile teams that you work with? So they say great moments come from great opportunities. And often we see, well, I don't necessarily have that opportunity. I'm kind of, I'm doing my thing. I'm a Scrum Master, or maybe I'm not even a Scrum Master. I'm just part of the team. But imagine every stand-up, that's your opportunity. Every one-on-one conversation, that's your opportunity. So think about that. I invite you to consider that going forward. And so with that said, I'd like to introduce just a great friend of mine. He's just phenomenal. You all know him, Luke Hohmann. Luke is just terrific. So you guys may not know this, but Luke's been around for just a couple of years, and truth be told, he was part of, I think, one of the original boards of the Agile Alliance, kind of creating this. So you think about great opportunities and coming from great moments. Luke has been there. He's been there along the way. In fact, what was really phenomenal, this last Agile 2015, as he created this keynote, he actually didn't talk so much about his company, Conteneo. He's the CEO of this company. He didn't really talk about innovation games. We all know him with innovation games. And just by the way, show of hands, who's using innovation game in their stuff? How many people has this touched? How many lives has that changed? Luke has changed hundreds, if not thousands and thousands of lives. So here we are at Agile 2015. And not only does he not really promote Conteneo, his own company, his bread and butter, he starts talking about every voice engaged. He starts talking about the stuff that he does for hardly anything. It's part of what he gives out to the community. It's about giving his time to the city of San Jose, to working on big, hairy, audacious problems like the California water crisis. That's who Luke is, and he reflects that every day. If you have not had a chance to have a one-on-one conversation with Luke for 30 seconds or for an hour or whatever, I invite you to do that. Just try to find him, track him down. It is worth every millisecond, right? You will leave that conversation with your head exploding, right? You guys, am I wrong? So Luke is awesome. He's really continued to create some greatness within the community. And in addition to innovation games and to Conteneo and using his online gaming, there's a deeper rooted thinking behind all that. And maybe it came from his time of excellence of being a champion in ice skating. But it's interesting, we had a quick text chat last night. So we're chatting back and forth. It must have been 11 o'clock at night, ridiculous times. And we're just chatting. He's like, hey, how things going? I'm like, I'm kicking back doing nothing. When in actuality, I'm sitting in a room full of volunteers running around pulling the stuff together. And I said, I don't know if they call this sustainable pace, being up at 11 o'clock. And something that really caused me to think about that carefully, which is a reflection on how we should maybe look at life. That sustainable pace doesn't mean it's flat and easy. I think the term you said, that typically means flat line is dead. So sustainable pace is having your good ups and your good downs and being able to balance that and keep it all in balance. And for some reason, when I think about that, I think of Luke Hohmann. So ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to introduce you to my friend and your friend, Luke Hohmann.
Thank you so much for that, Stacey. Yeah, it was about 11 o'clock last night that we were texting, and he was like, sustainable pace, chuckle. And of course, that's among the many things that people misunderstand about the Agile community. A sustainable pace for a heart means death. They know the precursor for a heart attack is actually a perfect sinus rhythm. So if you have a perfect sinus rhythm in your team, you're killing them. And you probably don't even know how, and you probably can't figure it out, but you are. So you have to figure out how to let life rhythms come into play. The other part about this is, for those of you who've worked with Every Voice Engaged in the city of San Jose, I'm pleased to say yesterday I had a meeting with the mayor's office, and one of the challenges I threw down at the Agile conference is one of the things that we see in large-scale Agile is you see this, people do a lot of retrospectives up front, and they love it, and then they kind of tail off, and then they hit organizational limits, and then they stop doing retrospectives of any substance because they don't know how to proceed. So what we've been pioneering is enterprise retrospectives, where it's kind of nice when people say, "Oh, we do a retrospective with 30 people. We'll do retrospectives with 500, and we'll do them all online and digitize the data and analyze it." But the real goal is cities decline when we stop having community. So what would it take to do a 50,000 person retrospective in San Jose? What would it take to do 50,000 people in the budget game, for those of you who have been in the budget game? And that's the kind of challenge that we're starting to look at. And of course, if you watch my Agile conference keynote, the goal is 200 million people engaged in these activities. But that's not what I want to talk about today. What I want to talk about today is, first, how many of y'all have a Sharpie handy? Of course, Joel would, firsthand. Look at Rob, right? Yeah. Rob, of course, Rob has a Sharpie. Who doesn't? He's an Agilist. We have Sharpies. And we're going to talk about Sharpies later on in the talk a little bit. But I also want to invite you into the secret inner circle. This talk was based on a conversation I had with Stacey. We were just chatting on the phone, and he said, "Hey, could you do AgileCamp keynote in Dallas?" And I said, "I can't. I'm off travel that time, but if you need me, I'm happy to serve in the Bay Area." And he's like, "Great. What do we talk about?" And I said, "Well, here's some of the things that I've been thinking about for a number of years," and it goes all the way back to my first book about organizational behavior. And he said, "That sounds great." So this is a first debut talk. That's what you should know. We're going to see how it works. You have to tell me. We'll retrospect. We'll see how it goes. You tell me how it goes. So when we're talking Agile, we think about the kind of the foundation that we want to create for our Agile teams. And we know that the stronger the foundation, the more interesting thing we can build, both technologically, and with our teams and the social structures. And we start to talk about, what does it mean to have a good foundation? And the other thing that we do is for those of you who know me, I'm a runner, right? And the question becomes, why do I run? Why does someone go to the gym, or why does someone do these things? Is it because I have this transactional relationship to fitness? I want to be a glutton at Thanksgiving, so I run to earn my chit, or is it because I run so I can eat, or I'm a fit person, and fit people behave a certain way? So do you do Agile because you want to get your software out the door faster and make more money? That's an entirely acceptable way to do it. Or do you do Agile for some other reason? Are you an Agilist, or are you doing Agile? And that's not the same thing. And what I hope to do in this talk is I hope to give you some experience in thinking this way through some examples and some activities. So I think there's like 15 slides max in the whole talk, and it's mostly going to be these sheets. So let's give it a try. Oh, the other thing about Agile, I wanted to add this is, is Agile for you a set of behaviors or a checklist? And Heinrich Nieberg is a friend of mine, and I think he's great. But what is Agile to you? Is it the checklist? I checked the box, I'm doing Agile. I checked the box, I can eat extra cookies. I did my run, I went to the gym, I can check the box. Or how do we behave? And what's the source of that behavior? And what's driving that behavior? And what's making us go? Do we have this checklist? By the way, it's not like a bad checklist. This is a great checklist. But are we checklisting Agile? Right? Oh, ended its sprint. Time to do the retro. We have 1 hour. Okay, go. Is that why we do retros? Because your Agile coach told you to do retros? Because your Agile team says we do retros as part of our process? Is that why we do retros? Hope not. Let's find out. So what do you see here? What do you see here? 4 families. Families. And in those families, who's that? Or who do we guess that is? Dad and right? And okay. So Activity number 1 is I want you to write down on the paper in activity number 1 in the who column who you see and some of the attributes and qualities that you would ascribe to this individual. So we have a few more people who need sheets. Let's make sure we get them out. For the family photo, what are some of the attributes and qualities you would ascribe to a father or a husband, right? Because you said father, dad, but there's also a relationship between these two people and these two people, right? There's father, there's husband, there's wife, there's mother. So write down who you see and take a moment and think about the attributes and qualities that you would ascribe to those people. Go ahead. I'll give you a few minutes. Okay, getting your head around this? What might be one of the who's that you wrote down on your paper? Anyone willing to share? Go ahead. Student. That's a who. You see a student up there. Okay. And what attributes and qualities would you ascribe to student? Inquisitive. I'm going to repeat them so everyone can hear. Student, inquisitive. Okay. I'm thinking also really simple. Did anyone write down mother or father? Okay, so what were some of the attributes you wrote down for mother? Nurturing. Volunteering. Interesting. What else? Okay, what? Teacher. So we had nurturing, we had teacher, protector, healer, caretaker, provider, organizer, authority figure. She's like, you better believe it. She's like, authority figure in our house. But which one? Challenger. Influencer. Guide. Happy. In our house, we would add cook. We would. My wife is the best cook in the world. You have no idea how good her cooking is until you actually come over and eat it, and you will be stunned. She's the kind of cook who got bored at Christmas this year or last year and made 120 dozen different cookies. I'm not kidding. Now, dude. She's the kind of cook who invites our neighbors over to have pumpkin pie tasting contests to see if the pumpkin that you buy and cook down from scratch is better than the one that you get in the can, and then which of the varieties of pumpkin taste the best. So we would add cook. What else would you add if you were in that line of thinking? Empath. Cook, empath. Okay. Handyman? Handy person? Handy person? Pardon? Bottle washer, chief cook and bottle washer. Okay, what about if you had father on your list? What would be some of the attributes or qualities that you would ascribe to father? Protector. Strong. Mentor. Provider. Motivator. Could we say handyman if it's the dude? Okay. Handyman. Visionary. Responsible, sometimes. Reliable, sometimes. Provider. We had provider. Well, I mean, you guys are all really, this is the Agile community. We're all like really flowery language, right? How about fix the bike chain? Dad, I broke the bike chain again. Really? How'd you do it this time? IT. Yes, IT and service. Pardon? Tech support. Yeah, IT service, tech support. Yes, school project rescue chief. Fix the broken sprinkler head. Gardening, light bulb changer. Maintenance. What? Chief bug squasher. Unless it's snakes for me, I'm not so into snakes. A father and mother could do either of them anyway, right? That's interesting. That's a very That's a very powerful insight. That's a very powerful observation. Hold that one for just a second, but that's a powerful insight. Okay, let's try it again. Activity number 2 on the second page behind it. Activity number 2, you get to do this again, but we get to do it now for our favorite world of Agile. We've got a Scrum team up here and a Scrum team in action, a Scrum team playing Prune the Product Tree, one of the innovation games to build out their product roadmap. What are the attributes and qualities of some of the roles or the people that you see when you see these kinds of pictures? Take a few minutes and do that. Do you guys have handouts here in front? Are you all set? Okay, make sure. Okay, you got a few labels down for you? Okay, let's start with you, because I know you, Olaf. I get to pick on you. Scrum Master, give me some attributes and qualities. Don Quixote. There are times in your life that you wish as a public speaker that as you were speaking, you could hit a switch and have the right musical background for your voice. Don Quixote. Okay, so Don Quixote, I have no idea what the heck that means, but okay. What do you mean by Don Quixote? Fighting the windmills. I thought they caused the windmills. Oh. Okay, what else you got for attributes and qualities? Thinking differently. Scrum Master. He started with Scrum Master. Qualities and attributes of that who or that role of Scrum Master. What do you got? Protector. Protector of the team. We protect the team from those bad executives. Facilitator. Like Umbrella Man? Yes. Advisor. Mentor. Educator? Educator. Yes, because the role of the Scrum Master is to help them honor the faith. Inquisitor. Joel. Adult in the room. Okay, I just want to point out, this is from the guy who likes gorillas in the room. Truth teller. Observer. Process owner. Interesting. Open-minded. Reporter. Yeah, I'm going to keep track and we'll report. One more. Cheerfully relentless. Okay, give me another role. You said it last, so you get to pick the next role.
Okay, so product owner, visionary.
Product owner, visionary. God, we love that word in Agile. Right? I mean, are we almost at our visionary quotient for today? I think we got about 10 more times to say it. Visionary. Owner of the acceptance criteria. What? I heard someone shout it out loud. Late. Product owner. Absent. Overworked. Negotiate like a role or a quality. Dreamer. You know, it's funny. I have a series on this where when I'm working with product owners, I remind them that there's actually, you guys know what the backlog is, right? Easy. Well, actually, there's 2 other logs. There's a good one and a bad one. There's your dream log, which is all the things you really aspire to, and then there's the worst one in Agile organizations is what I call the black log. And the black log, no, it's serious. The black log is the work that dev teams do that they don't tell their product owner because their product owner is putting them on a feature treadmill. And the black log is the source of an enormous amount of collaboration pain within organizations. If you have a black log, you've got real problems. And if you say you don't have a black log and you don't have evidence that you don't have a black log, then you probably do. Okay. That was the evil laugh of Terang. Okay. And dev team. What kind of attributes and qualities did you ascribe to the dev team? Innovators. Love it. Builder. Artists. Pardon? Over-caffeinated? Accountable. Self-organizing. Yeah, that checks off the right, buzzword. What? Okay, there's 3 over there. 1. Optimistic, yes, with estimates, that's for sure. Renegade. Conflicted. What? Mavericks, only in Top Gun. Focus. Exhausted, because that's sustainable pace. Owners of the backlog. That one's good enough. I'm going to go with that one. Now, I want you to take this activity one more time. Activity number 3, one more time. Can we do it one more time? One more time? All right. What do you see here? What are some of the roles and what are some of the qualities and attributes that you ascribe to this? Go ahead. Oh, you just want to shout it out and do it together this time? You don't want to write it down? Yeah, I'm cool with that. PETA, what's PETA? Pain in the ass. Did I say that like I was a PETA, Joel? What? Okay, I mean, we can throw out all the fun acronyms. We got PETA. What else do we have? Bureaucracy. This looks like bureaucracy. Structure. Overwhelming. Reorg. Slow. Reorg. Slow. There's only org chart. There's, what I said at the Agile conference, I'll say again. The business team would get further with the technical team if they said they were refactoring the organization, and the technical team would get further with the business team if they said they were reorganizing the code. Language matters. Language really matters. Okay, what else do you ascribe to this in terms of the doing? Back row, sharp-looking hat. You can't be back there looking good and not talking and not contributing. What do you got, buddy? Lack of change. Lack of change. Change resistant. Siloed. Empire building. What? Fixed pipe. Yep. Fixed pipe, inflexible, all that kind of stuff. Conflicting priorities. Conflicting definitions of success. Layers. Yeah, in need of Agile. Yeah. Money on the top. Well, as it should be. Are you really videotaping this? I'm worried about. Okay, so what started to feel about the words that you were using? What's going on with the words that you were using? They felt different, and you would ascribe that to be negative. Okay, so I'm going to repeat what he said so everyone hears it. Most of us see an opportunity for change when we see a chart like this. Interesting. Let's try this a little bit. When we used the words father and mother, and we started to explore the attributes associated with father and mother, I assert that some of those words were drawn from the category of being. And so I want you to go into the paper you have on activity number 5, because we kind of skipped activity 4. I'm sorry, activity 3 we skipped. I can go to activity 4. And write on the left-hand side, domain of being, and on the right-hand side, write domain of doing. And just take a moment before we shout them out for yourself. And the reason I'm going to ask you to be quiet, because this is your talk, right? I always try to create talks that are for my audience. And I want you to think for either father or mother or both. I want you to go back to some of the things that you wrote down and that we talked about, and I want you to distinguish which of those things were maybe in the domain of being and which of those were in the domain of doing. Go ahead and write those down. Take a moment. Okay, for either role, what were some of the things that you might have written down for the domain of being? What were we talking about that were being? Father was happy. I can be happy or I can be sad. Caring, I can be more or less caring. Both of them, confident. Yeah, I'm going to ascribe, by the way, that virtually any attribute that we use will be used for either. It's just that our experience base and the way that our family unit has evolved is likely to have us think one more than the other or be more comfortable. My family is much more comfortable when my wife does the cooking. I don't actually cook, I assemble. There's a difference. We survive. What other being words did we write down, or did you write down? role model. I can be a role model of a certain kind, right? Role model is really is a really interesting phrase because it's neutral in terms of its value. I could be a good role model, or I could be a bad role model. Dad, don't text and drive. You saw that? What about the doing? Breadwinner. Cook. Pardon? Well, I would put love and both the being and the doing, which is an interesting word in and of itself in linguistics, but I'm more in the easier doing words like cooking and cleaning, fixer, bug squashing, hugging. Hugging, and hugging would be the doing that's an expression of what being? Love. What? Nappy changer, yes. Yes, indeed. Listening. Discipline, right? Discipline. So are you with me that these words have both attributes of doing and being? Agreed? What about these words? Almost the last activity, but activity number 5. I'd like you to pick the being and doing of leader and manager. Go ahead, take a few minutes. Kind of. You'll figure it out. Effective. Ready to move on? They've got a handle on it. What I'm noticing a lot as I'm watching around the room is people have a very clear separation. So what are the kind of being words would you associate with leader? Presence, inspiring, confident, mentor, listener. Pardon? Activator. So what were some of the being words that you would ascribe to manager? Dominant, control, disciplinarian, threatening, threatening. Let's switch it around. What are some of the doing words that you ascribe to leader? Back row over there, way back, yeah. You guys been quiet. The work. Leader does the work. No, manager does the work. Leader does work. Inspired. This is tricky, isn't it? Are you starting to think a little differently about these words and what they mean, like they really mean to you? So what about manager and being? Anyone have like being words? We talked about threatened. I'm being threatened. How do I behave when I'm threatened? Assignments, command and control. Trusting. How about the doing side of management? What are some of the doing things that we do in management? Resource utilization optimizer. Bean counter. Now, but we do have to do that at some level, right? I mean, at some level, someone's got to have a budget and someone's got to deal with HR and vacation and managing stuff like that, right? At some level, someone's kind of got to do that. You hire and fire people, or at least you're certainly participating in that process. Evaluation, you're giving some kind of performance feedback mechanism. Protector. Enabling. But what I'm going to assert is the difference between the being and doing of father and mother is that with mother or father, we ascribe both being and doing qualities. And for leader and manager, we kind of ascribe being and doing qualities, but not really. In our minds, we tend to think of the leader as the being and the manager as the doing. We don't think of mother as being and father as doing in a really healthy family unit. We think of them both being and doing. This is important. I have found that adding a phrase to the being provides amazing power, and another phrase to the doing that provides amazing insight. And those phrases are because and so that. So in your role and the last activity, I'm going to ask you to write down domain of being and then add the word why. Add the word why. And then I want you to write down on the other side of the paper domain of doing, and I want you to write so that. And I want you to pick out for what you're responsible for in your job is I want you to pick a quality of being, and I want you to write it with the phrase why. And then I want you to pick one of your doings, and I want you to write it with the phrase so that. Are you with me on this? No? Not at all? Do you need an example? Are you sure? I'm not going to give you one. Okay, I'll give you one. So for me, I'm positive because there are a lot of people who think we're crazy to play games at work. I am being positive. I am high energy because bootstrapping an enterprise startup and software company when everyone else thinks you're crazy takes a lot of it. Takes a lot of energy. I'm doing things like developing roadmaps and requirements so that my dev team can build the best stuff possible. I am selling our solutions so that we have enough revenue to provide awesome jobs for my employees, because they do have mortgages and kids that they need to get through college, and we can't live on ramen noodles in the adult world. I'm not a ramen noodle-based startup. I actually have real people with real lives who need real jobs. Does that help? So take a stab at it for yourself. Write at least one being, but I want you to use the word why. And I want you to write one doing, and I want you to use the word so that. I'm sorry, I want you to use the word because, and I want you to use the phrase so that. Sure. Anyone willing to share? This is totally optional. I got a hand right there real quick. What do you got? That's great.
Prioritize or manage backlog so that I can provide maximum return on investment to customers.
Prioritize the backlog so that I can provide the maximum return on investment to my customer. Check. Being a good listener so that, can you frame that as a because? It's, in this case, it is a rare case where it's pretty identical. Olaf, what do you got? Pushy on the being side. Because I think things can be better. I'm going to be pushy. I think things can be better. Transparent. Because the truth will set you free and hurt in the process, but it's better than the end. Being positive because it makes work more joyful, creates better value. Trusting and empowering. Because I want to grow leaders. Because I want to grow leaders who grow leaders. Love it. Hold it. No. Dead on, right here. This table, like right back, straight on. What do you got? Innovation. On the doing side, doing innovation. So that we can bring a new product or a solution that will solve a real problem. One more, last one. Being unstoppable because. Right. Now, when you look at this linguistic form, right? Joel was pointing out, I was saying why. I submit to you that this side helps explain why. And I always tell my teams, because I am, quote unquote, the CEO, whatever that means, that there are times where I might make a decision which looks mystical to you. And you have the right to ask me. And if I have the data, I'll show you the data and we'll talk about the data. And if I don't, I'll tell you why. Because I don't want people to think we behave randomly, and we don't. There's always a why. Now, over here, I feel like more I'm like a human feature. Here's the feature, here's the benefit. The so that is a clause, and for those of you who have taken my innovation games training, I teach how to listen to linguistic forms that customers tell you in qualitative market research that give you insight not into just the feature they want, but the benefit that they're seeking. And one of the linguistic forms is blah, 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 so that, yak, yak, yak. Where the blah, blah, blah is the feature and the yak, yak, yak is the benefit. And when you talk about the things that you are in the doing side, you want to add so that you can remind yourself, what is the benefit that your doing is contributing to the organization? I wasn't actually joking about my wife's cooking. She really is an amazing cook. And she would say, I cook a home-cooked meal every night so that my family is as healthy as possible. I kid you not, when Twinkies failed and it was on the front page of the newspaper, my kids said, Dad, what is a Twinkie? Right? But that's her so that. She's super clear about the benefit she's trying to provide through the feature of cooking. Are you with me? Now, there's a side point. Most Agile teams create feature backlogs, and the really good ones create benefit backlogs. We can talk about that outside. But are you with me in terms of what this means, in terms of both I can explain why, and I can be clear about what I'm trying to provide? Questions or thoughts before I move on? Comments? Want to shout things out? We're kind of intimate. I like that. I like that. Okay, so now what? Well, there's a couple of things. I think that when you are clear on your because, your being, you create a true foundation for agility. Not a checklist for agility, but a foundation for agility. And I submit that we have a great place to start. It's the Agile Manifesto, which is a set of 4 values that define an aspirational way of working. Those values are important. And so it's funny, when I work with Agile organizations or organizations that are becoming Agile, they're like, oh, I want to do these things, or I want to do Scrum, or I want to do Safe, or I want to do blah, blah, blah. Well, that's always good. That's the domain of doing. But you don't want to confuse the domain of doing with the domain of being. And the domain of being is where you get this incredible foundation. Now, you want to be clear about that. The second thing is you want to love both. We love our mothers, don't we? We love our fathers. We all have memories of dad or mom sometime being supportive when we needed that support. And we all have memories of sometime mom or dad doing something when we needed something done. And one of the challenges that we're facing all the way back from the early 1900s in scientific management, when that book came out and that movement came out, and I'm going to separate the leader from the manager, the leader as manager from the worker. And one of them I'm going to ascribe all of these wonderful being things to, and the other one I'm going to ascribe these less than desirable doing things. We created a set of linguistic forms that we can't ever escape. I submit that the language infrastructure that has evolved and that is perpetuated and continues to be perpetuated is such that we can't change it. We can't use the words leader and manager and find a way to love them both in the way that we want to as Agilists. But we can introduce a new word, and I just said it. What's the new word that we can use that captures, like father and mother, the meaning of being and doing? When people ask me, what am I say I'm an Agilist. Oh, I thought you were a CEO. Aren't you visionary? Well, I'm an Agilist. Agilists are visionary. I thought you were a CEO. Don't you have to do a budget? I'm an Agilist. Agilists do budgets if that's needed. I think that there's a word that we can introduce rather than trying to change the words that exist, that are ossified, that are locked. We can become pretty much what we say we want to be, which is we want to build software as best we can according to the principles and values of the Agile Manifesto. We're Agilists. We might, in the domain of doing, do Scrum, we might do DSDM, we might do Evo, we might do Evolutionary Fusion, we might do Crystal Clear, we might do DAD, we might do less, we might be Lean Kanban. I could probably come up with a half dozen more doings. But we all can share a certain foundation that's really strong in the being as Agilists. You with me? Very quiet room. Am I motivating some kind of useful thought? Hopefully. So that's the starting condition. And when I think of being an Agilist, I think of someone who's trained and is ready to race. Their being is congruent with their doing. I don't know if you guys, does anyone know Jürgen Appello from Management 3.0? Okay, a couple of hands. I think his work is terrific, but every now and then I feel like I got to be the protector of the Agile Manifesto. And by the way, this is someone said to me, your methods are used by Lean and by Scrum and by everyone. I'm like, yes, because innovation games are like the Switzerland of methods. But one of the things that Jürgen tweeted recently, and again, I love his work, but man, he was wrong. He said, the ultimate test of agility is the degree to which you can make all your stakeholders happy. Which is wrong on so many levels, it's almost, right? I can't make you happy. It's not my job to make you happy. I can create an environment where a certain degree of happiness can be expressed. I can't make you happy. It's not my job, right? It's not my job to make you unhappy, but it's not my job to make you happy. And so if anyone follows me on Twitter, we went back and forth on Twitter, and he's like, oh, can you give me a tweet that defines the ultimate test of agility? And I said, yes, I can. I'll take that challenge. I think the ultimate test of agility is the degree to which our actions, the domain of doing, are congruent with our values, the domain of being. And as we move forward, I would ask you to consider lots of people in this room are involved in big companies, lots of consultants. You're involved in various transformations. You may work for a consulting firm. You may be a consulting firm. You may work for, I know I saw at least a couple of Cisco people here, which is great. You work in big companies, small companies. Okay, got it all. I want you to consider that last piece of paper, the last page, gives you an opportunity to clarify yourself, for yourself, how you want to be. And then from that being, how you want to do. And you can find a way to communicate that so your teams understand and your coworkers and your colleagues understand what's the because and what's the so that. So I understand the benefit that you're trying to create for me and how you work. Now, if you choose to live this way, if you choose to behave this way, you're going to find that you disappoint yourself. Because in organizational theory, there's always espoused theory and actual practice. And there's always a gap, right? Because there's hardware, software, and wetware. We're the wetware. Wetware is sloppy. We're not perfect. And so you're going to have this gap. That's okay. You're wetware. Wetware is allowed to have a gap. But every now and then, if that gap gets too big, the way to get at closing that gap isn't to start doing more. It's to go back into your being. How am I being? Am I being the right kind of agilist? Not leader, not manager. Am I being the right kind of agilist to help me accomplish my goals? And if I'm not being that right person or I'm not being a person that helps me achieve these aspirations, I'm going to start to work on my because, and then I can work on my do. Thanks. And I want to say one more thing. Stacey was talking about what I was doing with San Jose and what we're doing in our nonprofit. He didn't actually say that last time we did the San Jose budget games, he was in the room helping out and giving his time too. So it's not just, quote unquote, me. There's a whole bunch of people in this room. Ravi has contributed mightily to the San Jose budget games, Terang. So when he was talking about what I was doing, I always feel uncomfortable about that because it's not me, it's us. And so I want to point out, Stacey, I have a thank you to you for the contributions you've made too.
Woohoo! Thanks. Thanks so much, Luke. So we have a few minutes. You guys might have some questions, and Ravi has the mic. So would you be okay with a couple of quick questions?
Sure. There'll probably be a quick question and a long, slow answer given me, but.
Awesome. Let's grab one.
Hi, Luke. Really enjoyed your talk.
Thank you.
My question was, a lot of times we go into organizations and there's a mindset that says, it's just like this because that's the way things are around here. Based on your experience, how have you been able to utilize some of your toolbox of knowledge to kind of explore changing that mindset?
Yeah, that's actually reminiscent of a great Jerry Weinberg quote in the Secrets of Consulting, which is a great book for everyone in this room because it's about it's giving and receiving advice. And one of the things Jerry says is, things get the way they are because they get the way they are, and that's okay. And there's a branch of family systems therapy starting from the 50s with Virginia Satir and the Satir model of change that starts to draw forward what you can do. And so the current best practice is don't worry about how things got the way they are because they got the way they are because they got the way they are. And if you really want to get into complex system dynamics, organizational theorists like Carl Weick can show through cause loop dynamics that the way things get are impossible to trace to a root cause in complex systems. You cannot trace a root cause in complex systems. Complexity theory and other things, right? So the better approach is just to say, what is our aspiration that we would like to go to next? Where do we want to go? Now, how I do that when I'm working with executive teams on agile transformations is I use games. By the way, for those of you who are wondering, I don't say, hey, let's play. I say, let's use a goal-directed strategic activity that is clearly defined rules of engagement and measurable outcomes communicated through clearly defined information radiators. Now, executives are like, sign me up for that. But what I just described is a game because according to game theory, that's a game, right? And so we would do things, and here's something that some of you will or will not do, but let me give you an example of one of the things I do. I walk in the room, I say, okay, the doors are closed, and you're the executive team. You have now been given a free pass by HR. You have fired everyone that you don't like, and you have the opportunity, like in an option contract, to hire back who you do with no repercussions. Design the product box. So imagine you could have any team in a box on a shelf. Design the box of the team that you want to buy. Build it and sell it to me. And then watching those executives collaborate about the qualities of the development organization that they would buy if they could gives me tremendous insight into where they're headed. So that's the innovation game product box, but it's ascribed to a slightly different thing. And it's a tremendous opportunity for going through an agile transformation and kicking it off. And then I throw in some other games like Remember the Future and Speedboat and things like that. But that's how I start. And it's amazing what the boxes say from senior executives when they're imagining they could fire everyone with no HR repercussions and buy the team they really want. And then we say, okay, if that's the team you really want, let's build that team. Other questions? See, short question, long answer. That's my style. That's how I roll. Terang. Most of us are measured on doing, which I think is good. And it's action-oriented, which I think is good. And, well, metrics are sexy in their own metric-y way. Being isn't easy to measure, takes a long time. Everyone agreed?
So how do you then set course for having balance between both when really action is action is what you're focusing on?
Well, this is a very tricky question. So the question is, how do I set course on both when actions are what I measured on? Now let's go back to the fitness analogy, if that's okay. Can I use fitness as an analogy? Grunt once for yes, twice for no, or just go to sleep? Okay. Among my many interesting careers, I was an aerobics instructor for 14 years. It happens. Makes sense, right? Sling Scala code, teach aerobics, it's all the same thing. So what I wanted was I wanted fit people. And what I learned was I didn't actually care what got you into the gym. I actually didn't care. I wanted you to be a fit person, but I'm cool if you're going to the gym so you can slam down another piece of chocolate cake. I'm totally cool with that. And the reason why is because eventually we know from a lot of studies of cognitive psychology, a lot of studies about how people behave, is that if I keep on engaging in a certain transactions that create a certain set of positive beliefs and a certain set of positive outcomes, I then start to actually believe that that's the right way to live and behave, and that can take time. So my feeling is I'm totally fine if you guys walk into an agile organization or a less agile organization that wants to be more agile, and you're like, oh, they're not buying the values, Luke. I'm like, well, screw it. Just get them to done without bad code, and they'll start to see the benefit. Okay. And over time, if that thing becomes as beneficial as we know it can be, they'll start to go, hey, wait a minute. What are those values? So I have no problem with using action-oriented doing metrics and results to determine things. And over time, those positive outcomes will draw someone in. They'll draw someone in, typically. We got time for one more question if it's quick. Be a quick answer. Go ahead.
From doing, and then we get to being.
I'm not saying you have to start with doing. I'm saying in many organizations, the most appropriate path is to start with doing and let the being emerge. Because you're an Agilist, but you're not alone. There are other Agilists. You'll find them, and you'll clump, and you'll create a little gravitational force, and people will come in. So yes, I'm not saying you have to start there. I'm saying many times it is in fact the most appropriate way to start. And don't make people wrong for starting that way. That's not our job. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.